My name is Emily, and I recently graduated from nursing school. It has been my lifelong dream to help people, and becoming a nurse would be able to help me fulfill my dream. I landed a nursing job working for a hospital who helped people with mental health illnesses. It was Christmas Eve, and unlike many businesses, the hospital stayed open 24 hours a day to take care of our living patients. Instead of enjoying time with relatives, I'd be spending the next 48 hours taking care of 2 patients. This place was depressing, but some decorating the nurses did from the shift before helped lively up the place. I was assigned to 2 women, one who suffered from depression and suicidal tendencies, and another woman who was a paranoid schizophrenic. We will call the second patient Michelle. The first patient would sleep through the night, but Michelle didn't sleep at all. There would be days where she would be awake for up to 36 hours, which doesn't really seem possible. I had many instances where I had to engage with Michelle for therapies. One time, she attacked one of the guards assigned to protect me with the spoon she had stolen from the cafeteria and sharpened somehow. Other times, I could see her laugh and talk to herself in her room. This night was by far the scariest night of my life. It was Christmas Day, and I'd be able to leave in a couple hours. I sat at my desk enjoying my coffee and watching videos on my phone when I heard Michelle all of a sudden start to yell and bang on her door. I rushed over to her door and asked her what was wrong. She didn't respond. I slid the small door open that we would be able to use to check on the patients. Michelle was sitting upright on her bed. She was calm for someone who had just had an episode. The light from the moon exposed her face. She was staring at me with this haunting smile. She asked me to come in. I asked her what she needed, and she said that she wanted to talk to me, but only if I was in the room with her. I said okay, but before I opened the door, I grabbed a sharpened pencil to use as a weapon, if need be. I walked into her room and tried to turn on the light, but for some reason the light wasn't working. I asked Michelle what she wanted to talk about, and she just sat in her bed staring at me. Michelle, are you okay? What do you need? She was looking towards me, but slightly above me. She smiled and began to laugh hysterically. I was beginning to freak out internally, and she could feel my fear. She laughed harder and said, "Someone is standing behind you." My heart sank to my butt, and I looked behind me, gripping the pencil in my hand. Nothing. Just a wall and complete darkness. I turned around to see Michelle standing only inches in front of me. I flinched. She told me, "Don't worry, he's gone." Who's gone? I thought to myself. Her words shook me to my core. I walked out of her room and locked the door. After a few hours of waiting, the next nurse arrived. I couldn't be more grateful. I could finally take a break and enjoy the rest of the holiday with my family. Before I left, Michelle knocked on her door, and I asked her what she needed. Michelle said, "Merry Christmas." My family never really celebrated Thanksgiving. Instead, we would travel. This year, my parents would be traveling to France. I decided to stay behind and enjoy a little bit of time alone in my dorm since everyone else had gone home. It was Tuesday and I was bored in my dorm, so I decided to go on Tinder to meet someone new. I matched with a guy named Max. He seemed like the type of guy you marry, bring home to mom type, very clean and presentable. We chatted for a while and we decided to meet for coffee the following day. We met at a Starbucks. Max was even more handsome in person. He was very easy to talk to, and I felt like I could see a future with him. He asked me what my plans were for Thanksgiving, and I told him my parents were in France, and I'd be spending Thanksgiving alone in my dorm. Max insisted I'd come spend Thanksgiving with his family. I was delighted, and took him up on his offer. I showed up to Max's family's house around 6 p.m. Thanksgiving Day. His family's house was beautiful. Everyone was so welcoming and kind. After dinner, we all talked for a while, and eventually it was time for dessert. I excused myself to use the bathroom. and Max told me I could use the one upstairs. I made my way up, and I could hear a scratching noise coming from one of the doors. The scratching stopped. I stood still for a second, and then I heard the scratching again. I assumed it was a cat, wanting to be let out of the room, and I decided to open the door. I never expected to be met with such a frightening sight. It was a woman, about my age, and she looked a lot like me. Blonde, blue-eyed, and thin. She was bound and gagged and covered in scratches and bruises. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. The room was a mess and smelled of urine and rotting food. I freaked out internally and shut the door right in her face. After collecting myself, I went downstairs and explained to Max that I had a family emergency and had to go. He pleaded with me to stay, but I told him they'd come looking for me if I didn't go. He looked upset, almost mad. I ran as fast as I could to my car and drove off faster than I ever have before. I got back to my apartment. I looked at my phone and I saw I had received a message from Max. He asked me why I left, but I didn't reply. It has been 6 years since this incident took place, and I went on to have a successful life. What haunts me the most is that I never bothered to call the police to get that woman help. My selfish fear prevented me from saving that woman's life. You know how your mom tells your older siblings to take you or else they're not going? Well, I was the annoying younger brother that tagged along with my older siblings to go Black Friday shopping. This would turn out to be a big mistake. Our first stop was Walmart, and I was excited to look at the video games and game controllers. I found the games I wanted and found them for a great price. My siblings were doing some early Christmas shopping, and since I was an 8-year-old boy with a very small attention span, I got bored and decided to go check out the toy section. As I was looking at the wrestling action figures, I heard a voice ask me which one was my favorite wrestler. I said Triple H excitedly. I turned around and saw a large man. I remember how much this man looked like Santa, if Santa had a drinking problem and hadn't showered in weeks. He was kneeling and I could smell his disgusting breath. He mentioned how Triple H was his favorite too. I didn't know what else to say, so I said cool and turned around to grab the action figure I wanted. The man told me that he had a brand new action figure in his car with all sorts of video games and candy, but I would have to go with him now before someone else beat me to it. I accepted his offer and he grabbed my hand and we made our way out to the parking lot. As we approached the parking lot, he began to have a tighter grip on my hand and I cried in pain. He told me to shut up and to do as he said. He opened the door to his truck and I didn't see any toys or candies anywhere. I was confused. I asked him where everything was and he ignored me. The man threw me into the back seat and that's when I heard multiple people yelling and hitting the side of the man's truck. It was my siblings, followed by Walmart security. The man peeled out of the parking lot. He began to cuss and hit the steering wheel in frustration. He had been caught. He looked over to me. I was shaking, crying, and scared out of my mind. He pulled over and told me to get out of his truck. I got out and he took off at full speed with his passenger door still open. I could still see the Walmart logo in the distance and I started to walk back. I met up with my siblings and security. My siblings were in tears and apologized to me for leaving me alone. The man was never caught. The cameras in the parking lot where he parked his truck were not working, and the CCTV footage in the store didn't pick up his face. It was Black Friday, and Walmart was packed. If something like this could happen to a child in a busy store, then it could happen anywhere. I've never been a huge fan of Christmas, especially because my family wasn't wealthy. I'm not trying to come off as an ungrateful, spoiled person. My parents couldn't afford to give our family a proper Christmas. After many years of hard work, my parents opened up their own restaurant and it was a success. My parents also bought their first home and went all out on the decorations. My parents had decorated the inside of our house and put lights up outside the house as well. It was nice falling asleep to the red glow of the lights outside of my window. One night I had fallen asleep when all of a sudden I woke up with my eyes barely open. I looked around my room and everything seemed normal, but my vision was slightly blurred and I couldn't control my body. I felt as if I had 100 pounds on my torso. The red blinking lights outside of my window blinked and blinked and blinked until I saw a face form within them. A red and black face with eyes as deep and yellow as the sun. And I noticed this figure that was at least 7 feet tall, its body dark, blending into the darkness of the room. The figure reached its arm out to its side to claw at my window. The shrieking sound sent shivers down my spine, but still, I couldn't move. The figure stood there smiling at me with these sharp, jagged teeth. Its hands possessed these razor-sharp claws. It was a demon. I shut my eyes again, and when I opened them, I saw the demon sitting in the corner of my room, honing its claws. Each stroke sounded like knives being sharpened. The demon looked up at me and leaped over to the front of my bed and let out this demonic laugh. It chilled me to the bone. I forced my eyes shut, and when I opened them, the room was empty. All was normal. I could move my limbs again. The red Christmas lights were still blinking. It was an eerie sight. I had an episode of sleep paralysis, and I've never experienced anything like this before. I had other episodes of sleep paralysis, but it consisted of me not being able to move my body. Luckily, I never saw this demon again. Happy holidays, everybody.